What's up, everybody? Nathanael Morton here, and within this YouTube channel, I make videos on how to become the greatest version of yourself. And today, I have my cousin with me, Drew Wargo. Thank you so much for joining us. Drew is a master of money. And I usually make videos on how to get your body right, get your mind right, and I want to tie this into becoming the greatest version of yourself, because you can't become the greatest version of yourself if you don't know what you're doing with your money, and you spend all the money you earn, and you're broke. Can't be the greatest version of yourself when you're broke. So today I'm going to ask Drew a few questions about money and finances, and we'll go along those lines, and we'll just see what unfolds for this interview.
Perfect. And thank you so much. I want to thank you as well for bringing me on, doing a quick interview. Definitely appreciate that. And in terms of money, becoming the best version of yourself, we all have limited resources in our life, whether they're money or whether they're anything else, and we all have goals. So one of the most important things is making sure that we're taking those resources and we're really trying to put them towards our goals. And a lot of times in life that doesn't happen. But yeah, I think that definitely ties in with money.
Absolutely. So, Drew, just for the context of this video, go ahead and tell the people a little bit about what you do, because I remember one time I told one of my buddies about you. I said, any questions I have, any advice I need, I ask my cousin Drew. So I said, you could talk to my cousin Drew. He's a financial advisor. And you got back and you said, I'm not a financial advisor.
Right.
So what do you do?
Yeah, so I work at an investment company down in Florida. I'm a sales analyst, essentially. So we have different areas of our company that we go out to get business, different types of products. And I support the institutional, the consultants, and the IPD line. So for an IPD example, you might think of something like Merrill Lynch or Goldman Sachs. They're gatekeepers. Consultants are gatekeepers as well. But with this type of, say, like an IPD client, they have a whole bunch of financial advisors with the firm. So Merrill Lynch might have a large amount of financial advisors that meet with individual people, and they give them, strategy or sell them different products to help them meet those goals. Well, before our company can have our products sold on their platform by any of their financial advisors, it needs to go through a higher level at the company of Merrill Lynch to be approved on their platform. And that's the type of salesperson whom I might support with the IPD chain. Consultants is somewhat similar, but they're consultants or gatekeepers for like an institutional channel. And then the institutional clients themselves, think of those as just large pension funds or large endowments for a university. And so as the sales representatives go out across the country, I'll support the clients from our home base, or I'll provide them information directly to the clients through email.
Okay. So, by doing that, I guess you've learned a lot about finances, investing, money, and the whole shebang.
Yeah, I've gone a couple different places at that firm. I've been in our tax reporting area, our anti-money laundering area. I've learned through customer service operations as well, and now it's sales, sales support. So absolutely, yeah.
Awesome. So, most of my viewers, my target audience, are 18 to 24-year-old males. So we'll just say we'll take the males part out. My question is for 18 to 24-year-olds, just coming out of high school, just coming out of college, what is the number one piece of advice that you could give them about money or finances in general? Could be anything.
I'd say get out of debt. If you are 18 to 24, either you're in debt or you're about to go into debt just because of college. That's just how our society is set up right now. And at the same time that you're going into college, you run into all these expenses, whether you're getting a dorm or apartment or your own home. You're already going to be racking up credit card debt. So the hardest thing to do to get your finances on track is pay off the debt, because it has a higher interest rate than chances are the investments are that you actually have. So limit your spending to what you actually need. Don't live the high life. And then as soon as you're out of college, focus on getting that debt down as soon as possible.
All right, so that brings up a few questions. The first one I'm going to say is, don't live the high life. Something I definitely did in college. I took the money that I had for loans, and I would go to the bar, and I would blow my money, and I had no sort of budget. Do you think that everybody needs a budget to get their money right?
Not everybody, but like 90% of people. Every mindset is a little bit different, and some people are just naturally frugal and they just won't spend money. And to say, well, those people need to be on a budget, it's like, well, maybe they need to budget a little bit to make sure their money is going out correctly, going out towards their goals, but they're already doing a good job of limiting their expenses. But for the vast majority of people, they want to go out, they want to have fun, they want to drink, they want to meet, go out, have fun with girls. All that's going to cost money, and you really do need to say, hey, wait a second, how is this going to impact me long term? Let's limit or put a budget in terms of weekly or monthly in terms of what I'm going to spend, and then the rest we'll kind of hold off till later.
Okay, so I know for myself, I've never been aware of where my money was going. For years, until very recently, I wouldn't look, quite frankly, to be honest with everybody, I wouldn't look at my bank statements because I knew I wasn't going to like what I saw. So, and then I wouldn't look at them and I wouldn't be aware of where it was going, and it got worse and worse and worse to the point where now I have been tracking everything. Every single day I go into every one of my accounts and I look at where my money has gone and I write that down every single day. And I found that, I didn't know that I was paying for an extra car insurance. I was paying 2 companies for car insurance for like 6 months. And it's like you have to be aware of these things. Would you say that people need to be tracking their account summaries and their balances daily? Or is that something that you do? You go in every day, or do you do like a weekly or a monthly thing?
So it depends on what type of account we're talking about. If we're just talking about a bank account, you don't normally have to check it daily. I mean, that's too much. It shouldn't be a daily chore to go in and check your bank account. If it's something that you're interested in, like, right now you want to say, hey, I want to check every day just to make sure that I understand everything that's going out, and you're really focused on that, I don't think there's a problem with it. I don't think there's a problem with it, but in the long run, you should get to a point where, once every couple weeks or every month you're checking it, because you already have your budget down. You already understand it. And maybe you're checking it even just to make sure that the bank isn't charging you incorrectly or a company isn't charging you incorrectly. But if we're just talking about a bank account, you don't need to be checking that daily. And actually, if we talk about other accounts with your money, let's say your investment accounts, absolutely you do not need to check those daily. In fact, the more often that you check those, the worse your investment returns might be because of the psychological impact that'll make you say, hey, it just dropped, I need to pull out. Okay, it's doing well, now I need to put back in. If you just buy and hold, relax, check it, once every 6 months or something, you're going to find out that you are managing it better in the long run. So it really depends on the type of account.
Right. I think it also depends on the type of person, because I do check my investment account every single day, kind of just because I like to see where it's going. But at the same time, I've taken your advice and you've taught me, you just never touch it. It just doesn't get touched. You buy and then you hold. And I see it go up and down, but I don't even get nervous because you've taught me that, it will go up and down, but over the long term, it goes up. So you've talked a little bit about getting out of debt is the biggest piece of advice you would give to 18 to 24-year-olds. I am in debt myself, and they know that. I've been very open with all of my audience on here. But I have a little bit of credit card debt, and then I've got a lot of student loans. So, and I also owe my mother, if we're getting real truthful, I owe my mother $400, and I owe my girlfriend $1,500. Now, let's say I need to get out of debt. Have you ever heard of Dave Ramsey?
I heard of him, but I really don't haven't really listened to any of his podcasts or anything.
So Dave Ramsey talks about the snowball effect, and he talks about paying off your smallest debt first. So if I pay off my mother for $400, it's like a psychological win. And then I go to the next person and pay off, $1,500 to my girlfriend. And then the next one, which would be my credit card debt, and I pay that off. And then I go to my student loan, it's about $20,000, and then my big student loan, which is about $30,000. So I do it in that order, and each time, it picks up steam, because as soon as you pay off the credit card, you pay minimum payments on every debt. And then as soon as you pay off the smaller ones, you take that payment that you were paying towards that and you put it towards the bigger ones. And it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger to where you're on the last one, you're paying like $1,000 monthly towards your biggest debt. Would you agree that that is the right route to go? Or should I pay off my credit card or my highest interest debt first?
Yeah, well, so again, that really depends on the person. I think you hit it spot on when you said it's more of a psychological trip to do this snowball effect. Now, paying off your mom first, even though she probably isn't charging you interest, it might be in your best. It might be in your best interest otherwise to not have your mom on your bad side. So paying that off first, I'm not going to argue with that one. But for the rest of the part of the snowball effect, where you take your smallest one and you kind of work your way up, I think that the fact that it has a good psychological mindset for the people who aren't as ingrained in the finance world, it helps them. It's nice to look at it. It's nice to say, okay, I have like 5 different cards that I'm looking at, and now I only have 4, and now I only have 3. I mean, I think that's a good psychological reinforcement for a person that's going to help them to focus on getting out of debt. But no, from a finance perspective, I mean, if you are just like, pure emotional steel, that is not the correct way to do it. You start and you pay off your highest interest rate first. So if you have a credit card that's, you're getting 9% or 10% that you have to pay on it, and then you have another credit card that's only 5%, even though the credit card that's only charging you 5% is smaller, you still put your excess funds towards going towards that higher interest rate, towards getting rid of that one, just because it's cheaper in the long run to get rid of your most expensive debt and then work your way down.
So you will save more money by paying the highest interest debt first.
Right, but at the same time,
in the long run.
Right, in the long run. But at the same time, it won't help you if you're the type of person that just gets, so bombarded by the concept that you have 5 outstanding bills, that you start on this path of the highest one first, and then you just feel overwhelmed because no matter how much you pay, you still have 5 cards because you're still working on that first big debt. And maybe at that point you get discouraged and you stop looking at it. So it really depends on the person. So the psychological mindset, go for it if it works for you. From a pure financial standpoint, the highest cost debt should get paid down first.
Okay, great. So let's take a turn down the building wealth side of money. So I read a lot of books. I got a little bookshelf in my apartment, and all of these books that I read on money say that the way to become wealthy is through some sort of investment account, right? A lot of these books say you're not going to earn your way to wealth, which, these people earning $50 million a year. You kind of question that, but they all say you need these investment accounts. Would you say that to become wealthy, an 18 to 24-year-old, should they open an IRA or a retirement account?
Again, because I favor the get out of debt first concept, I don't necessarily push that a person who is, has a pile of debt should then begin opening up an investment account. But I think as soon as you have the excess funds to open up an investment account, you absolutely should. If you have that spare money, you need to start building that up. And I think you hit right on the head when you said you're not going to earn your way to wealth. Aside from, a few small percentage of the population that has never really built up an investment, they literally just can go paycheck to paycheck, and all of a sudden their paycheck is so big that they're wealthy. You don't count on that for the average person. So just taking a small amount of your paycheck every pay period, putting it into an investment account over the long term, interest upon interest, compounding interest, that will eventually get you to a point where you can retire. And that's where you get wealth. And that's where the vast majority of people do, by participating in the equity markets, through some type of mutual funds, through some type of investment, and going that route.
Okay, so what is compound interest for the younger guys and girls who don't know? Because compound interest is very, 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 very powerful. Could you just give us a little context of what that is?
Sure, yeah. It really just means that you're getting interest on the interest that you earned from the previous year. So if you have $100, okay, you put that $100 into a savings account, you get interest on that $100. Let's say it's 10%. The market did well, you got 10% in your mutual fund. So now you have $110 at the start of the year. For that next year, if it earns 10%, you don't get 10% on the 100, you get 10% on the 110. And so now you'd be around $121. You get a little bit extra because you did this interest upon interest, and that's what they refer to as compound interest. So instead of this linear growth of every year you're getting $10, you're getting a little bit more every year. So it grows faster that way, and in the long run it's very, very successful at helping people to get secured for retirement.
Okay, great. So for the people interested right now, they say, okay, I'm sold, I don't have any debt, I want to start investing and putting my money towards this account and taking advantage of this compound interest. Where do I go?
Yeah, I mean, I would honestly recommend sitting down with a financial advisor. They'll go ahead and they'll put together some type of portfolio for you. They'll go through construction. They'll ask you questions about your age. Do you have other types of, like, say, health insurance, long-term care insurance? Are your plans to have a home? Do you want to have a family? If so, what time period? What goals do you have outside of money? Did you want to go back to college? They'll ask you a whole bunch of questions, and then they'll build a portfolio, so to speak, for you. It'll be something along the lines of, okay, we'll put you in 75% equity, and maybe we'll throw in, 10% in fixed income, and 15% will be split between alternatives and something smaller. It really depends on the actual person. So I would say that definitely go to a financial advisor if you are in that phase where, hey, I want to start with investments. And obviously there are investments, I have my own bias because I have my own investments and I've been in finance for a while. And not to misconstrue this with advice in any way, shape, or form, but doing something simple as opening up some type of account that follows the market, like say the S&P 500. There's a lot of different products that might focus on growth stocks or value stocks or biotechnology, and they kind of break them down into different areas. But just getting into the market as a whole is a good way to start, especially if you're 18 to 24 and you don't come from a wealth of advice. There are a lot of people that push, like, say, well, Apple stock is a great stock and Netflix is doing really well. But at the same time, if you don't have that financial background or that time invested in trying to figure out whether or not a company is going to be successful, what their next earnings are going to be, how does that impact their price that it's at right now, going off to a broader approach and going and investing into, say, the market as a whole, again, works just as fine. More of a psychological thing because you don't have to look at it constantly because you're not actively researching every single stock in the market. And you can kind of put it on the back burner. You just invest, dollar cost average, and over the long run, once again, watch it grow.
Okay, so we've got these kids interested. They wanna open an account, take advantage of this compound interest. They know where to go now. What about all of these books that I read and all these interviews I hear about? The market's about to crash. The market's about to crash. Why should they invest when the market's about to crash?
Yeah, I think it's always good to listen to these articles and to read up and just say, hey, what's going on in the financial world today? Because it is important, but I think the more important aspect of it is that keep in mind you are doing this long term. It might be the case that the market does crash next year, but over the long term, the market might average 9% over a 25-year period, 9% annually. The fact that, okay, you have a couple years where you were at 15, 16%, and then you had a year where you lost 20%, if you just dollar cost averaged in, instead of trying to listen to the articles and pull your money out every time someone says the market's going to crash, you'll end up doing better in the long run, and it'll be a lot less stressful. In terms of actual market crashes, they have happened throughout history. They'll happen again. I don't think it's worth overly worrying about unless you are, a person who is very, very focused on active management and trying to guess where that next bubble is and how to hedge yourself against it. But for the average person, for the average 18 to 24-year-old, whenever you hear an article, the market's about to crash, they come up with articles like that all the time. Buy, dollar cost average, keep it, hold it for the long term.
All right, and kind of to clarify and make it very simple, because Drew has kind of dumbed it down for me over the years, and he's explained to me that this is a long-term investment. If you're not in debt, let's say every month you put a certain amount into this retirement account, it grows and grows and grows, and you're kind of forgetting about it, right? You're not touching that money. And as he just said, the market is going to crash, and you're going to see your money go down. You're gonna think I'm losing money. I gotta pull my money out before I lose all my money. But Drew has taught me that it's gonna go up and down, but over the years it tends to go up. So it's gonna go up and down, but it's gonna go like this, right? And it's gonna end up here when it's time for you to retire and finally pull that money out to be using it to live. So that's just to clarify that part of the question. But let's take kind of a turn. I got a question from a buddy. I was asking my friends, I said, what questions do you have about money and finances? Because I got my cousin here. He's the money master. What do you want to know? And my friend Kevin McCardle, I've had him on a few of my videos. He asked, his question was basically, how do you get out of the mindset of spending all that you earn? Because we talked about you can't earn your way to a fortune. There's been people like Johnny Depp who earned $700 million and filed for bankruptcy. 50 Cent, who earned $100 million on vitamin water alone and lost it all, right? So these people earn massive amounts of money, but if their mindset is to spend all that they earn, it doesn't matter how much you earn because you're going to spend all that you earn.
Right.
So how do you break that mindset? His question was, he said, I'm broke now, but I'm not always going to be broke. So in my mindset right now is to spend everything that I earn. I'm living paycheck to paycheck, only earning, $3,000 a month, living paycheck to paycheck. I don't want it to go when I'm earning $30,000 a month to still living paycheck to paycheck, still spending all I earn. So how do I break that cycle?
Sure. And I'm going to take one step back for a second. You made one comment at the very end stating that, hey, when you take your money out at your retirement, it's going to be higher. I do want to let you know that, once again, because you can't predict the crashes, you don't know that at your retirement, that's actually not going to be a time period where it's going to crash. So a lot of times when you go to a financial advisor and they are, constructing a portfolio, if you say, hey, at age 70, I 100% need to be able to take out, half of my retirement account, or I need to take out 10,000 a year or something like that, they will slowly switch you out of equities into bonds or something that is less susceptible to a market crash. So just quick clarification on that. But in terms of, hey, I'm broke now, I'm not going to always be broke, but once I get to $30,000 a month, how do I make sure that I'm not, spending, that much? Again, I think it comes down to budgeting, which is something that we covered in the beginning. Living below your means is always important. As you talked about, these people who are making hundreds of millions of dollars, but yet they somehow go bankrupt because in their mind, oh, I'm rich. Oh, I have all these income streams coming in, and they don't bother looking at their accounts. It's almost like a chore. It's like procrastination. A homework assignment, you just don't even want to look at it because it means more work. You don't want to be in that mindset. Get in the mindset, like you said, of once every couple weeks or a month, you check your account. Every 6 months, you're looking at your investment accounts, making sure that they're on track or that they're what you actually want them to be. It's really about living below your standard of living, calculating what you have, calculating your future expected income, and then saying, you know what, based on my income, I can't live at this level, and then just going below that. And I know that sounds overly simple, but there's a massive number of people who don't do it, and a massive number of people who go broke because of it.
Right. And I'm not sure where I heard it, probably some book or some podcast or something, but somebody said that there are 3 types of people, and it stuck with me this whole time. Not sure who said it, but it stuck with me. There are 3 types of people when it comes to money, and the first one spends more than he earns, and that person's in debt. There's people who spend as much as they earn. That person lives paycheck to paycheck. And there's people who spend less than they earn. And that's the type of person you want to be. Spend less than you earn and invest the difference, is I think what they said. Would you agree with be that third type of person?
Absolutely. I mean, the other 2, like you said, either they're going to be in debt or living paycheck to paycheck. So living below your means, investing what you can, and then hold it for the long term.
Okay, so let's talk about discipline, because for myself and for my buddy Kevin, I'm sure that our biggest problem when it comes to money, I'm a lot better with it now, but I wasn't before, was I just didn't have the discipline to budget and to sit down every month and do these things. And I know that you are very disciplined, because one thing that stuck with me with Drew was, Drew is my cousin. He lives in another state, but we see each other from time to time at family gatherings. And it was at a wedding, and I noticed that everybody was having alcoholic beverages, but Drew still got up in the morning and went to the gym at like 7 a.m. Well, I'm sitting here hungover, and we went to bed at the same time, and you got up and went to the gym, and I'm sitting here like a bump on a log. And you also said that another thing that stuck with me was that you go into work an hour early every single day and leave an hour late every single day. Do you still do that? And how did you build that discipline in yourself to do all of those things and stick to that?
Yeah, first of all, I do remember that wedding, that party that we had, and we had a lot of fun. So that was
a lot
good.
Of fun.
But yeah, I think we might have gotten 4 hours of sleep, got up, work out. Again, it's just habits, getting into it, what's important to you, and your mindset when you go to bed. I got 4 hours, that's all I got to deal with it. In terms of, I already forgot the second part that you had talked about. Repeat that second part of that question.
So the second part was, do you still go into work early and stay late?
Yeah, so we have different time periods throughout our year. Sometimes they're very, very busy, and sometimes they're not. In our very, very busy time periods, I would absolutely go in 1 hour, 2 hour, maybe even 3 hours early, and then I would stay late on top of that to make sure that everything gets done. When I believe that if someone hires you to do a job, you got to do your best to get that job done. You have to work hard, you have to sacrifice. If they let you come in early, you come in early, you learn that material, you make sure that it gets done, gets correct, and it gets out the door. If it's not a peak season, no. I don't come in 2 hours early or 3 hours early unless maybe I'm studying for some type of exam and they kind of let me use that as a facility. But other than that, I don't come in, to work extra hours if that work isn't necessarily there. But if that work is there, absolutely, it's what I do. It's a part of the mindset that you got to get in. You don't want to ever go to work and say, hey, they're paying me for 8 hours. I gave them 8 hours of work. I'm done. You want to say, did I do the very best job that I can do? Because even though maybe you aren't getting paid extra for that time, if you have good management, they notice it and they will promote you and they will recommend you for other positions because of that.
So is that something that you've always had? Were you born with this discipline, or is that something that you cultivated and developed over time?
No, it's definitely something developed over time. I mean, when I had my first job, I was like bagging groceries and pushing carts, and to me, I was making so little in comparison to all the money that was getting scanned across the registers. I felt like completely ripped off. I really didn't have any concept of supply and demand of labor. I didn't have any concept of how minimum wage works and how that plays into the whole economy. I didn't really have any concepts of how economics works. And so to me, I was just like, well, I'm not making a lot of money. That guy is, but I'm working my ass off. Screw this. I'm going to give him the bare minimum. But then as you get more into the working world, as you spend more time doing different jobs, you gain a certain level of respect for people who put in that hard work or who have kind of worked themselves up that chain versus people who just didn't. So as you work and you see those people who work so hard and did so well, you're like, well, I want to be like that. And like you ask them, how did you get like that? And they're like, well, every day when I come in, I just do the best that I can. I work as hard as I can. I have new ideas that maybe make the company better, maybe, whatever. When I come in after I've agreed on a paycheck, I don't sit there and say, well, I'm going to try to do the least amount of work to get my paycheck. I try to do the very best I can. It's not a job. It's a career. This is a growth field. And that kind of mindset is how I start, or how I kind of turn. I didn't always start out like that.
All right, so I kind of want to take a turn down the path of goals, right? Do you think that everybody needs to have goals, and do you think that they need to set up financial goals for themselves to strive for monthly, yearly, in for decades and beyond?
Yeah, I think I definitely recommend being a goal-oriented person. There are people who just say, hey, I don't want to think about the future. I want to live life in the present. And I think there is some truth to that, to say you can't always be worried about the future. It's okay to live life and enjoy life. But at the same time, being a goal-oriented person helps you grow better. You do better at the things that you're actually focused on. So you should actually have goals. You're going to be more likely to achieve them than just kind of going with it and seeing how life turns out. In terms of how finance comes into play with that, I would say it's hard to think of a calling in life that you aren't going to need money for in some way, shape, or form. Even if you want to be a priest, or if you want to go into religious life. In your mind, you have to think to yourself, okay, if I go into a priest or religious life, we have to work with our community to not only do what we want to do religiously, but get donors to support that. So no matter what you're going to go into in life, you're going to have money somewhere, in the back burner to make sure that your goals are on track. And in terms of length, yes, I mean, have a 5-year plan, have a 10-year plan, have a 20-year plan. I have goals for retirement, which, I think retirement age right now, 59 and a half, you can take it out of your 401k. So I have goals for what I want my 401k to be. But then I also have other goals and say, okay, well, I have other types of investments. What do I want to see them do in 5 or 10 years? And do I have a trip that I want to take to Rome in the next year? Okay, if I have a trip in 1 year to Rome, how much do I need to set aside for it? So no matter what your goals are, you're going to have a financial backing behind them. And absolutely, 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, 30 year, depending on what your goals are, they need to be there.
Okay, so I have a question for you, still along the lines of goals, but you hear these contradicting pieces of advice from these books and these people who talk about not only money but goals in general. And some people say you got to be realistic with your goals. You got to be realistic, set something tangible so that you can hit it, achieve that, and then go higher. Then you have these other people who say, nah, you got to shoot big. You got to shoot for the moon, and even if you miss, you'll land amongst the stars. Set these huge goals. Stop limiting yourself to thinking so small. I have personally struggled with that because I remember one of my goals when I was like 21 was by age 22 I want to earn $1 million. It's like, well, have you ever earned 100,000? No. Have you ever earned 30,000? No. It's like, but I'm gonna earn $1 million in 12 months. Do you think that people should be more realistic with their goals, or should they set their goals bigger and try to achieve those bigger goals, or is it a mixture of both?
Well, I personally, I'm on the former. I'm the dreamer, right? So I believe that, hey, if you have a goal, if you have a dream, it doesn't matter how big it is. If your goal is for 1 year from now to be making $1 million a year, that's your goal. You don't need to give that up because someone else tells you it's unrealistic. I think the problem comes in when failure comes into play. So your goal is $1 million a year, and then you fail. Your mistake wasn't to say, oh, I have a goal of making $1 million a year. Your mistake is when you punish yourself because you didn't meet this goal. You really only want to, kind of self-correct or, be upset at yourself if you have things that are within your control that you chose not to do. So if you said, well, I could have worked 8 hours a day, but I stopped at 7. Okay, well, that was a goal you could have controlled. So you can say, well, you know what, I decided to watch TV, be lazy. That is more when I would say, okay, that's what they're talking about when they say realistic goals you can control. Don't get upset over things you can't control. If you make a goal to become a billionaire and you don't get it, you're going to be so devastated, so don't even make that goal. No, I mean, make that goal of becoming a billionaire, but if you don't get it, you need to be able to look back and say, was I doing everything I could to make that goal? Did I lay out a plan to become a billionaire that made sense to me at that time? Do I still need to change that? Do I need to say, okay, well, I can become a billionaire, but I need a partner now? Or, something a little bit different. So don't ever punish yourself for not meeting these high goals, but don't ever use realism as a reason to not have a dream. So.
Right. I really like that answer. And what I've kind of come to the conclusion of and what I've adopted and what works for me now is dreaming really big, but then bringing it back to the present because the only time is now, and you have to dream big but act small. And you have to ask that question, if I have a dream to become a millionaire in 1 year, what needs to happen for me to accomplish that? What do I need to do? What do I need to be doing daily? Like, are there habits I need to be doing every hour? So that's kind of what I've come to the conclusion of, and what has really helped me is dream big, but act small. So let's take a little bit of a turn here, and I'm going to ask you a question that is kind of cliche, but it is, what is the question that you get asked the most about money?
In terms of money, I get questions asked about cryptocurrency. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with that subject at all, but I'm actually invested in Ether, which is a cryptocurrency based on the Ethereum platform. So when people ask me questions about money, it really ties into what is money? Why is money worth anything? Why can people create this new cryptocurrency, and should I be invested in it? Is it going to go to zero in a year? I get questions on that because it's so popular in the finance world and technology world right now. That's the most frequent one that people personally ask me about it. I don't know if you want me to kind of go into that.
Yeah, so let's say Bitcoin, that's huge right now. Is Bitcoin, for every 18 to 20-year-old, is this their chance to get rich? Bitcoin.
I think that's kind of a higher question. We'd have to really start from the basics in terms of what even is Bitcoin.
Okay.
So when we talk about, we'll probably even go further than that, we should talk about what is money. So when we talk about money, we talk about, people think of dollars and coins, something like a medium of exchange. I can go to some type of store and exchange it to get some type of product. They also think of it as a store of value in a way. I could put it into a bank, or I could put it in my room, and when I wake up in the morning, it's still there. It didn't decay like a banana peel or something to that extent. It has a store of value. It's divisible. So if I have a $100 bill, I'm not stuck only buying things for $100. They can break that down into smaller increments, something to that extent. So you have this, rare kind of material or this rare type of property, so to speak, and you exchange this property in exchange for other goods, and that's really essentially is what becomes money. And right now, money, at least as far as we know it, is always created by a government. So any Japanese yen, the Brazilian real, U.S. dollar, a government is printing that and saying, with full faith of the United States government, this is going to be legal tender in our country, something to that extent. And that's actually how money begins to have value. When you say, why is the U.S. dollar worth more than the Japanese yen, or maybe it's worth less than the euro? When you talk about the valuation of money, that gets very important, because eventually we get into Bitcoin or Ether, and they're talking about these other cryptocurrencies. So how do you value them? So I would say, well, let's start with, how do you value a normal money? If I am in Brazil and all of my money that I get from my job is in the Brazilian real, and then I take a trip to Japan and I walk around and I try to buy stuff with my Brazilian real, it's not going to get accepted. There's no place, well, there's probably not any that I know of, that are just going to walk in and accept the Brazilian real. If I want to buy goods and services in the Japanese country, platform, I have to exchange my Brazilian real into Japanese yen. And that's essentially how this Japanese yen is going to get value outside of Japan, because people are going to look at the goods and services they can get at Japan. They're going to realize they need to exchange, they need to buy this currency, and then this demand for this Japanese yen begins to be, supported by something. It's supported by the people who want to get access to Japanese products, goods, and services. So when we take a look at something like Bitcoin or Ethereum, think of the country of Bitcoin. Think of the country of Ethereum. If I take my money and I exchange it into Bitcoin, what service do I get? If I exchange it into Ether on the Ethereum platform, what do I get? And so you might say, okay, well, on the Bitcoin platform, you get an ability to transfer money anywhere in the world almost instantaneously. If you try to do a wire to Peru right now, it might take a week, or maybe if they don't find it, even longer than that. But if you use Bitcoin, it's almost instant. If I want to, let's say, I want to be hedged against a government that has a lot of debt. U.S. government's got over 20 trillion in debt. What's going to happen if it crashes or something goes wrong to the U.S. dollar? I was talking with my parents the other night. My mom made like $2 an hour, back when she was starting to work. So you take a look at the value of the U.S. dollar, and it's just dramatically decreased. You don't have to worry about that with Bitcoin. The inflation rate is substantially smaller. So there might be 13 Bitcoin outstanding right now, and with its inflation rate, we know it's going to stop at 21 billion. So it's much more controlled. It's much more understood. And also, it's not necessarily, it is decentralized. So if you were to go to a bank keeps record of all of your individual transactions. But with Bitcoin, every single miner has a record of those transactions. So if you were to attack one bank, or if someone in the banking system who works there, forges something on the ledger, or screws something up, well, you're in trouble. When you have a decentralized system with, thousands of people who are keeping track of this ledger, it's not going to happen, or it's going to be much harder to happen, I should say, something like that. So now I've exchanged money, I can get hold of this, more people are going to exchange into this Bitcoin, and that demand for these types of services, for this type of platform, pushes the value of that up. All right, that's a portion of it. Another portion of it is just speculators. So a speculator will say, hey, I see this Bitcoin, everybody else wants to get on it, the price has been rising, I'm not going to buy it because I care about the decentralized ledger, I'm not going to care about it because I can send money faster than I can with a wire, I'm going to get it just because I see the price is going up and it's the best investment that I can find on the market. And you just have huge volatility when you have speculators in a market, in any market, because they're not there for the product, they're not there for the long term, they're there just to try to make money off off a quick investment. Now let's switch over to Ethereum as another example. Ethereum, again, it's a platform, and you could do the same thing. You could transfer Ether, across different countries. It's also on a decentralized platform. But Ethereum has like a smart contract functionality. So again, these are computer programs, and what it allows you to do is pretty much any type of program you want to write, you can write it in the programming language that Ethereum is based in. And right now there's over 870 or 880 different smart contracts on there. And so this just goes back to, if I want to value a currency, what are the goods and services that are going to come out of it? So if you were to say, is Bitcoin the wave of the future? I would say, well, take a look at some of the other cryptocurrencies, because right now you have a lot of speculators in Bitcoin, but in terms of actual supply and demand for the services that are going to be offered in the country of Bitcoin versus the country of Ethereum versus the country of Ripple, look to what services, look to what contracts or smart contracts are on there. Look to what goods or digital goods are being created on there that there might be a market for, that are going to incentivize people to say, hey, I want to exchange my US dollar into Ether to get a hold of the service on the Ethereum platform, or the goods on the Ethereum platform, or the services of Bitcoin, or the services of Ripple. So if your goal is to jump into Bitcoin to get rich quick, I would not recommend that at all. I mean, people have absolutely done it because either they got in early or just were still kind of riding that wave up. But the way that I value investing is to say, hey, if you think that this has a legitimate use that's going to be propping up the demand, then I would say go into it. So go into something like the S&P 500, where you think goods and services throughout the United States are going to continue to happen. You know, it's the market. If you favor biotechnology mutual funds or something else, it's because you feel the underlying product is something that has a utility that you want to get into. And the same thing should be holding true with cryptocurrency. If you think that the Bitcoin platform offers a service that no other cryptocurrency has, then get into it. But I would strongly recommend, if you want to get into that space, look at other cryptocurrencies and say what services are they going to have, because in the long term, as speculators get out of it, because those infinitely high returns start coming down, who's going to be there to prop up the demand? The people who want that for the goods and services that are offered through these different platforms.
Okay, so that was a lot for me. For any 18 to 20-year-olds out there, it was probably a lot for them. But to summarize, what it seems like you said is that you personally and what you would advise is to invest with, the value in mind. And like, if it doesn't align with your values and your morals and what you believe should be right in the world and continue to happen, like the exchange of goods and services in the United States, then you shouldn't do it. So I have a question for you. If you could jump in an investment that did not align with your morals, but it could make you $1 billion, would you do it?
Sure. And just to differentiate real quick, difference between morals and usage. So there are immoral things that happen on these platforms, on Bitcoin, on Ethereum. Maybe they're not known or maybe they're not publicly advertised, but if you have something that is not controlled by the government, people who want to do things that the government doesn't allow or illegal activities, they're going to do it. So there's a difference between a moral and usage. They have great usage potential, and again, search through different platforms for what you want. In terms of morality, absolutely. If you think that the moral goal of the company, like if Bitcoin was created solely to launder drugs, then don't get into it if that's what you truly believe it is. But to answer your second question, if an investment could make me $1 billion, but it was completely immoral, would I jump into it? The answer is absolutely not. I buy the market, and I understand that there's probably something in there somewhere along the lines that I disagree with. For example, I only eat certain types of meat. So like I eat meat if it's raised ethically and humanely, and they advertise that on their package, only because there's been a lot of problems in the past with inhumane treatment of animals. So if I had to choose and say, okay, this company has officially stated that they are going to do all these horrible things to animals, and they're going to sell their products, and they don't care about it, they're going to do whatever, and the U.S. government is not going to enforce any type of regulation on them whatsoever, are you going to invest in that company if their profits look like they're there? And the answer is no. I'm not going to do that. So there is definitely a line there.
Okay. Great. So we're coming to the end here. Let's wrap it up with a few final questions. My first final question is, if you could give the people watching this one habit that they need to adopt, could be daily, could be yearly, just a simple habit that they could start to do to gain control of, we'll say, their life. Could be finances, could be general, anything. What is that habit that you think people should adopt?
Yeah. And does the age range matter, or are we still sticking with 18 to 24? Because if we open it up, it'll be a different answer. If we open up to any type of age range, I would say the habit you should get into is taking a portion of your paycheck and investing it. That's the habit you should get into. That's the best long-term thing. If we're dealing with a specific younger age group, the first thing that they should be doing in terms of habit is writing down the things that they think that they can live without, the things that they can do to lower their standard of living. And as they keep that, take that excess money and go to pay off their debt. So depending on what age group we're talking about, the answer is either focus on cutting down on lifestyle so you can pay down the debt, or making sure that a portion of your paycheck is coming out to go towards investments for long term. Okay, and I like both of those answers. So my next question is, because Drew and I have talked, Drew has this
huge secret goal that he won't tell anybody about, but you know it's big. So I won't ask you what that is because you probably wouldn't tell me anyways. But my question is, what is the impact that you want to have on the world?
Well, I mean, a positive impact, obviously. I don't know if, the type of things that we do as people, like if you want to become a billionaire one day, okay, that might mean billionaire and do, helping to lower diseases in the world, or maybe it's to help with education. As long as I'm able to do something that, helps the world from a standpoint of saying we want to become a more moral place in the world as a whole. So, it's not necessarily do I want to make the world more productive. I mean, if that's a byproduct of it, great. But it really is to take more people and to get them to say, hey, is this something that I think is morally correct? Do I want to do it? Do I want to not do it? And move in the direction of not doing it. A lot of people, as they go through their careers, they start off with a young, hopeful, we want to do what the right thing is. And then as you get older, it's like, well, no one really cares, and you see that mentality. You see this die-hard mentality when you're young that you want to change the world, and then as you get older and it doesn't happen, it's just nonchalant. It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, I did that, but he did that too. And you look at politics, you look at the way that people argue in politics. It's not really a debate on morality. It's like, yeah, I screwed this up, but you screwed this up too, and you're accused of this. And it's very much a mudslinging game because all of them know that none of them are really trying to argue on the moral platform. They all know that they're arguing on the power platform or the money platform. So if I could do anything, it would be to contribute towards helping the world move towards arguing on the moral platform.
Great. I love that. My last question for you is, let's say there's a kid out there, he said, I love Drew Wargo. He's a beast. His advice was awesome. How do I find him and connect with him online? Do you have an Instagram, a Facebook? Is it strictly just you got to go through Nate? Is it what would you say to that?
I give my email address. It's Wargo WARGO CC83 @hotmail.com. If you wanted to reach out to me, they can reach me there.
Okay, great, and that's it, Drew. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me on. Appreciate that. Have a good one.
See you guys next time.